What is going on, everybody? It's your boy John, and welcome back to Gearbox. So today, back at y'all again with yet another video, and what I wanted to accomplish on today's video is talk about either like rookie mistakes or maybe some things to consider when it comes to lowering your car or just driving a lowered car in general. Yes, I know I am on bags, so this halfway applies to me, but it is still stuff that I have to think about day in and day out if I'm at my preset ride height type of deal. But just overall things to consider, right? So I want to roll through just a couple things. Some things that apply to me, some things that do not. But in general are going to be things to think about before lowering your car or before driving a lowered car. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get into it with number one. Alright guys, so number one thing to keep in mind really before lowering your car, but also just driving a lowered car in general, is keeping in mind your spring rate and or dampening on your struts or springs or whatever. So for those who are kind of unaware of what I'm talking about here, your spring rate is basically going to be how stiff are your springs, and your dampening, in the sense of coilovers or airlift suspension, is going to be kind of fine-tuning that. How stiff do you want your ride? How loose do you want your ride? And for different applications, different spring rates or different dampening is going to be okay. But the big thing to consider here, one with spring rates, typically as it relates to lowering springs, is if you're cutting your spring, or not, sure, you can cut your springs. Please do not cut your damn springs. Pay a couple $100 to get lowering springs. But if you're getting lowering springs, odds are the spring is going to be shorter and the springs are going to be stiffer. So yeah, your car might sit a half an inch lower, but your ass might hurt after you go over a bumpy road like they are in South Carolina. Same thing with dampening. If you are driving a car that has adjustable dampening, 30-way adjustable dampening like my struts do, or Fortunato coilovers or whatever, keep in mind kind of what what settings you're at, depending on how low you want to go. If you don't want to rub, you might need to crank that shit up a little bit. But all in all, as long as you are aware kind of what settings you're at, spring rate and dampening, that's really, really, really going to affect your drive quality. And once again, it depends on what type of driving you're doing. If you're doing daily driving, if you're doing track driving, whatever. Just keep that in mind. It's going to, in my opinion, make or break your experience with, riding on coilovers or riding on lowering springs. I know I've had to do some tweaking with my dampening on my air suspension setup. A little bit, not a whole lot, but anyway, just something important to keep in mind, and that's number one. On to number two. All right, everyone, on to number two on this list of kind of rookie mistakes or things to consider while driving a lowered car is going to be how much whatever you have to roll or pull your fenders. So if you look right here, I have done zero modification whatsoever to these fenders. So rolling would be attaching a device here and kind of getting that lip in there pushed more this way to be able to fit a bigger tire. Pulling your fenders would be doing that, right? And just kind of warping them out a little bit. And as I kind of mentioned there, this is really going to be dictated by your wheel size, not necessarily how low you want your car to go. If everyone remembers, or if you're new to the channel, these are, I want to say 17 by 8 plus 35s on my 2019 WRX. This is totally slammed right now. and I have more than enough clearance in here because I did not fit my wheels to the fact that I'd be on air. But if you're going for a super Stancy Boy setup or whatever, just keep that into consideration if you want to go a wide wheel or you want to run some serious offset on your wheel. Just be cognizant of the fact that you probably are going to have to roll/pull your fenders, and that's just how it goes. There's really no way around it. It's more of a necessary evil. So do it right the first time. Get someone that knows how to do it, whatever. But that's definitely going to be something to consider when driving a lowered car. All right, so the third thing to talk about on this list here is rubbing. Now, I want to go ahead and say rubbing is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just important to know what you're actually rubbing on. For example, if you are running, let's call it, a larger diameter wheel or maybe a wider wheel, and you go and, turn full lock type of deal, and this corner of the wheel is hitting the inside of the fender well, not the biggest deal in the world. I personally would not like that, although that does happen on my car. Just with my normal ride height, it just rubs the tiniest little bit, but I can live with it. Now, if you are trying to lower your car, let's say it's on bags, and you're running a wider wheel, and that wheel slightly rubs against the airbag on your strut, that's a problem. Might not be a problem today, might not be a problem a month from now, but eventually that rubbing is going to stop, and it's not going to stop because it just randomly changed shape. It's going to stop because you rubbed a damn hole through your airbag, which will be catastrophic failure to your entire suspension setup. Same thing if you are, obviously if you're rubbing on your brake calipers or something, the wheel's not really going to turn. But there are certain things you really need to look after. One thing on mine is if I ride too low, there's a metal piece right here, basically right above the fender liner, and it's just like this sharp ass welded metal. If I hit a bump and hit that, my tire would explode. So I need to keep that into consideration and make sure that my tire does not explode when I'm driving down 85 south to go to Atlanta and I'm stranded in the hood somewhere, for example. You don't want to be stranded anywhere, but I don't personally want to be stranded in the hood. So, long story short, make sure, you do thorough testing when it comes to, you just installed it, yeah, I know you're excited, whatever, but just make sure everything works as it should, and if there are any modifications you need to make, just go ahead and make them. Your life's going to be a lot easier. Anyway, on to number 4. All right, number 4 on this list is going to be more of a driver mod than it is a physical modification. But number 4 is going to be angling, whether it be just doing it or knowing how to angle. So for those who are unaware, if you drive a lowered car, especially if you've got a front lip or something like that, or even in the rear, honestly, or these side skirts, obviously you're driving a lowered car, so it's lower to the ground. But what you don't realize is that when these wheels go over a bump, let's say down, like a curb, and these wheels are up, the low point's going to be right here. The way that you get around that is by angling. It's still going to be low, but it's going to help you be not as low. I'm sure everyone who's watching this video has seen people just blow off front lips on a speed bump or something like that. Yes, it's funny until it's your own situation. But it's just something to do outside of my neighborhood. Literally right out there. There are speed bumps in my neighborhood. It sucks, and they're really annoying. But because I angle, I can go over them at my normal ride height. If I were to hit them straight on, I'd blow off my front lip, probably blow off my entire front bumper, and then I'd be very pissed. And I don't want to be pissed. I want to be happy. So, learn to angle. It's something that's not very difficult. Attack it at a 45 degree, whatever sort of bump or driveway you're going into is going to be your best bet. But something you're going to have to learn how to do, especially especially something to keep in mind if you're going to let people drive your car and they're not familiar with driving lowered cars. You better make damn sure to teach them how to angle, otherwise use is fucked and you have to deal with the issue. So number 4, angling. I'm sure everyone knows that, but in the off chance that you don't know that and you're thinking about lowering your car, go look up some other videos of angling your car because it's going to save your ass. On to number 5. All right, y'all, so the 5th and final point I want to make here is making sure that as you're lowering your car, you are well aware of the type of driving you're going to do. The first thing that kind of pops to mind here is if you're going to be a stancy boy and you're going to have fucking hella camber, on your wheels, not my cup of tea, but if that's what you want to do, go for it. That's you. That's one of the beauties of being in the car community. Although people give each other a lot of shit, ultimately it's your decision to make as far as, do you want to be stance, do you want to be track set up, do you want to be a show set up, like how do you want to do it? But if you decide at first, hey, I'm going to be a stancy boy, I'm going to have a shitload of camber in my wheels, and then you decide to take it to an autocross event and spin out and hit a concrete wall, choose one or the other. Or, in a perfect world, if money was not an issue, we'd all have different cars for every different emotion we had and everything we wanted to accomplish. You'd have your stance car, track car, truck, whatever. But typically that's not how it is. So if you're going to make the investment to lower your car and you decide, you know what, camber life is for me, that's how I want to do it, I'd probably suggest not go ripping mountain roads. Just going to throw it out there. Also, if you, on the flip side, if you decide, you know what, I'm going to go for a nice track setup or whatever, and you decide you want to go rally your car and go off-road, tracking it, you're probably going to have a bad day as well. So, there are a lot of things to consider, and I know those are all pretty extreme examples, but it really is something to think about. What is going to be the use of your car? Is it a daily driver? Well, in that case, I personally would take a pretty non-aggressive approach to your stance. If it's going to be a show car, fuck it, go for it. You're not going to drive that thing a whole lot. Just think before you act. And I know I've touched on that in a million other videos, but if you don't know what your plan is, you really don't know what you're doing or have any business to be doing shit just for the sake of doing shit. You need to have a plan. You need to know, hey, this is what I'm going to do, step A, B, C, D, E, F, G, to then get to the final destination of, here's what I want my car to turn out as. If you don't have some of those things in place, it's going to be a pretty, not so fun time for you. But anyway, guys, I hope you really appreciate the video here. You have any other suggestions for new people who are either driving lowered cars or things to consider while lowering your car, drop them down in the comments below. As always, like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, you know the deal. And once again, have a great weekend. Thank you for watching Gearbox. Peace.